Welcome to our Texas A&M University of Kingsville Center for Continuing Education on how to start a career in cybersecurity. My name is Jeff Lockhart. I've been a computer instructor for a number of years, since 2005. I started out just doing, the basics, Windows, Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, those things. I started then going into the operating system. I actually was doing operating system server administration before I even got my A+ certification, but I did go back and I did get my A+ certification. So I can take computers apart, put them back together, I can network computers, and then of course the longer you get into it, the more you get drawn towards security. So even though most companies back then were not giving security the time and attention they should, and certainly not the resources and the money that they should, it tended to be one of those things that, security, the more you heard about these breaches, you'd think, well, why didn't people set it up correctly? So I now am Security Plus, Cloud Plus. I do have some other certifications as well, CCENT, that is the Cisco Certified Entry-Level Network Technician, and also the VCP, which is the VMware Certified Professional. I've worked at various places. Kickstart, based out of Austin, Texas. Northeast Lakeview College, based out of San Antonio. Before that was NetDesk, based out of Seattle. And then in these companies that I've worked for, they send me all over the place. And so I have taught at Lackland Air Force Base, which is in San Antonio, Offutt Air Force Base, which is in Nebraska, Fort Carson, which is out in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And then so multiple places. Plum Creek, I don't have that one on there, but that's in Montana. And it seems like they always send me to Montana and Seattle in the wintertime. So it's getting to be March. They got that blizzard going on in Denver right now, so don't send me to Fort Carson. So I've taught at a lot of places. Obviously, the Air Force bases and the Army bases are very security conscious. When I was teaching at Fort Carson, they would not even allow the students to have internet access. So we built a classroom, we had laptops, and all the laptops were connected to a switch, and that was the extent of our networking infrastructure. So we had a LAN party, but we couldn't connect to any WAN links. I've also taught at Rackspace Open Cloud Academy and Bibliotech, which is the Bexar County Digital Library. Very unique. Most libraries you walk into, they have books and books and books. The bibliotech is nothing but computers, and all of the books are electronic. So very much 2019. And in a lot of these places, I've either taught security or I taught what we're going to be talking about today, beginners trying to get into technology. So let's go ahead and take a look at our agenda. We're going to look at how fast information security is growing as an industry and where you can help. We're also going to look at job statistics and growth opportunities in cybersecurity or information security. Information security is probably the what we around here would call the formal name, but everybody, the buzzword is cybersecurity. So I'm going to use those two interchangeably. We're going to look at a three-step process of how you can quick start your career into cybersecurity. We're also going to look at how our Cybersecurity Bootcamp can help serve this purpose. So the first question is, how fast is information security growing? Well, there's a nonprofit organization, ISACA. It's a nonprofit security advocacy group, and they predicted that there will be a global shortage of 2 million cybersecurity professionals by this year, 2019. And every year, and that's actually worldwide, every year in the United States, there's a whopping 40,000 information security analyst jobs that go unfilled, while employers are struggling to fill 200,000 other cyber-related roles. This means that there's a huge demand for these roles, and there's a shortage of appropriate talent. So I did link the hyperlink there so that you can actually look at my source on this. CNBC actually has a much higher number. CNBC recently did a story. They said there's a significant and growing gap between available corporate and government cybersecurity jobs and the people available to do them, with 3.5 million jobs possibly going unfulfilled by the year 2021. That's where we come into play, right? Don't you want to take one of those jobs? So why is there so much growth? Why is there 3.5 million possible jobs out there? Well, that's because cybersecurity breaches are becoming as common as peanut butter. I didn't really know that peanut butter was common, but there we go. And I like this, again, this is from that same web link, dig.com. And it says the implications of cyber breaches are just as messy as that peanut butter. All of us can probably remember some cyber breach that affected us. The first one that was really massive was the one at Target. Probably, I think that was about October, November of 2015. And that affected 130 million Americans. That was 1 in 3 Americans. And so most of us ended up having to get a new credit card, if you remember that time period. Some of the other ones that we have listed here, Equifax was even bigger. It was 143 million consumers. Verizon, Kmart, Yahoo, they're all mentioned here. What about the Office of Personnel Management? That was a government agency that affected a lot of veterans. And it just seems like every couple of months we hear about these really massive data breaches where people are having to get issued new credit cards, we're having to change out passwords, we're having to get identity monitoring to make sure that nobody's stealing our identity. So there's a lot that goes into this that affects lots and lots of people. There's huge amounts of cost going into this. Notice at the bottom of the slide here, it says an average cost of a data breach is now up to $3.6 million. You know, it takes a lot of money to do to do identity monitoring for 143 million consumers and to assure them that their information is not getting stolen or sold to, you know, third parties that will be doing malicious things with them, like ruining our credit. So this huge cost. And you know, that doesn't even take into account the loss of goodwill. So how many times, again, going back to that Target thing, there were 130 million people. I mean, let's just make it a little bit simpler. Let's say there were 100 million people that were affected by that. What if only 1% decided they would never shop at Target again? What would the cost of that be? If those people, if that 1%, that would be 1 million people. So that'd be 1 million people saying they're never going to shop at Target again. Now, what if on average they spent $2,000 a year at Target? That's not a large number. If you were a regular Target customer and you bought your food there, maybe some electronics every once in a while, $2,000 is not an outrageous proposal. So if you had 1 million people not spending $2,000 on each on average, that's a $2 billion a year loss to Target. So that number down at the bottom, the 3.62 million number that they have there, I don't know why I'm trying to be so precise, but that $3 million number that they have there, that's just the tip of the iceberg on what these breaches cost companies. So there's lots of other factors that you can't calculate as simply just what did I spend on this. So data breaches are more and more common. That's why there's the demand for the jobs. So what is a 3-step process to quick start your career into cybersecurity? So very simply, number 1, you have to learn the concepts and the vocabulary. Quite a few people, and we'll see this in just a moment, quite a few people are getting into this industry from other careers. Maybe they were an accountant. Maybe they were a nurse. I've actually had people that were park rangers go through these types of programs. And then you may be coming from a completely non-technical background. I've actually done Uber driving myself, so maybe an Uber driver. We've had students that came in, they were Jimmy John delivery drivers. So if you're coming into this from some other industry, then it is a new language that you're going to have to learn. Learning these concepts, learning the vocabulary, it's not going to happen overnight. So this is step 1 in the process. Learn the concepts and the vocabulary. So I can tell you what a VLAN is, but you have to understand the concept of when you would use a VLAN. So VLAN is an acronym, right? There's lots of acronyms. Typically in most of the classes that we teach, there can be 200 acronyms that we're using in that class. I know a lot of times when you go to class, you go to some type of course, they actually tell the instructor don't use acronyms, you know, and don't use in speak so that the students feel like they can understand. Because if you're using in speak or that those, again, just acronyms, then the students feel like you're talking over their head. Well, see, that doesn't work in the cybersecurity classes. We always talk in acronyms, and we always do the in speak, because that's the way it's going to be in the real world. Once you get a career in this, you're going to be speaking in acronyms too. So it's one of those immersion programs where immediately we're going to start talking in acronyms. And so, as I said, most of these classes have about 200 acronyms that you have to learn. So there's a whole lot of concept, a whole lot of vocabulary that you have to learn, just so you can start getting into it and start getting a framework for the next step. So how do you learn these concepts? Well, there's lots of books out there. Barnes & Noble has them. You could also do the Kindle version of books. There are probably half-price book places that you can go to get some discounted books. You know, one of the interesting things is, let me just take one class, for example, Network Plus. Network Plus is a certification exam for networking. We'll talk more about it in this webinar. But Network Plus is into version 7 currently. Well, about 6 months ago, a student gave me an original set of the books for Network Plus version 1. And I was so proud. It's almost like a museum piece. You know, wow, this goes back to 1999. You know, so I set it on my shelf. Well, one day I pulled it out and I looked through it, and I can almost teach Network Plus version 7 using those original courseware. So why is that? Well, because a lot of the concepts and vocabulary have not changed since 1999. There's a there's a utility that you're probably aware of, maybe you've even used it, called ping. Ping allows you to send electronic packet to a remote computer, and then it comes back. We request an echo. If the remote computer chooses to do so, it'll send back an echo ping packet to us. And that tells us the round trip time. It tells us that everything is connected. It tells us that the server's there and is at least willing at the network level to communicate back to us. So it's a very useful utility. It's been around forever. And so, yeah, we talked about it back in 1999, and that original book had information about ping. And here it is in 2019. If you were to get a Network Plus version 7 book, it would still be talking about ping. So if you wanted to go to a discount bookstore and get a book that's slightly out of date, maybe you can get a version 6 book for half price or less, go ahead and do that. Pick that up. You won't have to spend much money on that, and you'll be getting most of the concepts that you need. At this point, you're just trying to learn the concepts. You're just trying to pick up the vocabulary. There's also a lot of YouTube videos out there that you can watch, and there's also some websites that you can go to get flashcards. So you can either make your own flashcards, which is fine, or there's websites that you can go to. So you know when you hear stuff, your brain is having to encode that information. I'm sorry, you're actually decoding the information. I said it backwards. So as you're listening to me right now, your brain is decoding what I'm trying to tell you. But if you had to explain this to somebody else, like if you had to speak it, now your brain is encoding the information so they can give it to somebody else. And it's very helpful when you're listening to these things to take notes. And that's why I said with the flashcards, you can actually write it down yourself. So you can read it, which means your brain's going to decode it, and then you can actually use the flashcard to decode the information. Decode, encode, I keep getting it wrong. But the point is here, by doing both, you're actually exercising 2 parts of your brain. And that is going to help this information stay with you in a much longer period of time. So whether you're writing it out or you're going to some electronic flashcards, it's a good way of getting your brain memory to working on this vocabulary. So one of the websites, by the way, is called Quizlet. So if you happen to go to Quizlet, you can look up cybersecurity, and you can look up flashcards, or you can look up IT vocabulary acronyms, and they have hundreds and hundreds of flashcards for you. And Quizlet is one of those apps that you can use on your phone or your tablet. So if you're stuck in traffic, waiting at the bus stop, waiting at your doctor, whatever it is, you can pull up that app and you can practice your flashcards and really start learning the vocabulary. Another way that you can learn the concepts and vocabulary is try to find a mentor. Try to find an expert in the field that you can shadow, watch them in their day-to-day life, and ask them questions and listen to how they're communicating, because they're going to be communicating in acronyms. So certainly, write down every acronym that they say that you're not familiar with, and then go look it up. So this three-step process to quick start your career in cybersecurity. Step number one, learn the concepts and vocabulary, because you can't go on to step two unless you have a foundational framework to put that in. So let's move on to step two now. Now that we've learned the concepts and the vocabulary, we can start learning the skills. So how can you learn these skills? I mean, it's the old chicken and the egg scenario. I want to get a job, but I don't have any experience. I need experience, but I can't get the job to get the experience. So here, how about just becoming the IT security expert inside your own home? This way, you can make your home environment much more secure, and you're going to be learning skills along the way. Years ago, I was talking to a hiring manager, and I said, what is one of the things that, what are some of the things that you ask potential employees and when you're interviewing them for a job, and especially people that don't have a lot of IT background? They said that the first question they ask is, what is your home network like? So if the applicant can explain what computers they have, what type of computers, what type of normal troubleshooting they do at home, what the operating system is, what's the service pack, what's the what level are they on updates, what's the antivirus they're using at home, what type of firewalls are they using at home, what type of encryption on their wireless access point are they using. If the applicant can answer the questions about how their home network was secure, then they could probably come into work for this company and get some more experience using other technologies. But if you cannot even explain how your own home network is working, how do you expect to run somebody else's? How do you expect to secure somebody else's? So learn the skills and become that home security IT expert. So most homes have internet activity. You have a home router. That's what we call it. We just call it the home router. It has a built-in firewall. Have you ever looked at it? Do you know how to use it? Do you know how to make changes to it? Do you know how to back it up? So these are all things that you should go research to start learning the skills. Get your hands on with some actual lab environment. If you do have a home wireless access point, how are you encrypting it? There are 4 possible settings. The first setting is open, where just anybody can connect, and there's no encryption and there's no security. In the early days, they created something called WEP, or WEP, that would allow you to encrypt traffic. Well, WEP makes me weep because it was very insecure and nobody should use it anymore. It's been deprecated. So what we use today is WPA2. That is the Wi-Fi Protected Access version 2. And so, again, become the IT security expert in your home. Go and configure all the different things that you can do to protect your home Wi-Fi. I can actually name about 10 of them right now. I won't because of the time restrictions on what we're doing here today. But making sure that you change things like the default password, implementing WPA2. How about disabling your SSID, changing the name of the SSID, and then also maybe setting up time of day restrictions. I have young kids at my house. I don't want them browsing the internet at midnight. So I can actually, based on MAC address, and if that's something you don't know, you'll have to look up the MAC 3-letter acronym there. But based on MAC address, I can actually go in and make sure that my kids only get access from like 3 in the afternoon to 5 in the afternoon. And so they only have 2 hours a day of web access. And it's in an area where I can monitor what they're doing. So become that home security IT expert. That's the first way you can actually get some skills. Now, a lot of times when we start getting into this and we start reading the book and everything, we start getting adventuresome, right? And we start wanting to tweak this, tweak that, and we might break something. Now, our wife or our spouse, our partner, they may not like it when we've broken their device. So we might need some lab equipment to work with. And again, if you're trying to look for something that's inexpensive, low cost, Goodwill Industries usually has some very cheap computers that typically are running fine, and it doesn't matter. I spent $50 for it. I can go in and make all kinds of configuration changes, like the picture that you see on their screen there. I can go rip out all the parts, see if I can put them back together and make the thing work again, and then keep working at it until I can make it work again. What about a Raspberry Pi? There's actually something called a Raspberry Pi Zero that you can pick up for $5. So it's basically just, it looks like a little motherboard. Actually, it looks more like an adapter card, but it is a motherboard. And those things have HDMI ports, they have Wi-Fi ports, they have a little bit of memory to them. So it's actually a computer on a chip. So on this really small motherboard, and you only pay $5 for it. So all of these give us a great lab environment to where we can feel like we're doing something. We're in a safe environment. If we break it, we didn't spend that much money for it, and we can still try to figure out how to get it back to the way it was functioning. And so go learn these skills in a safe environment and just keep repeating until you've achieved muscle memory. All right, the third step in this process to quick start your career in cybersecurity is to get certified. You now know the vocabulary, so you can talk the talk. You've got the skills so you can walk the walk. But the certification proves this to employers. This certification is going to demonstrate a level of proficiency to any potential employers. So we do have a quote here, and again, I do have the web link there. Certification makes a great first impression. 96% of HR managers use IT certifications as screening or hiring criteria during recruitment. And more companies are getting away from degrees, college degrees. Now, I know this is being sponsored by Texas A&M, but it is the continuing education part of it, not the academic side. So we're not trying for a degree here, and we're not going to say that you have a degree at the end of this. I have had many students come through my class with a 4-year degree in maybe something like graphic design, and they can't get a job, but they can if they get certification. Certifications don't get you the job, but certifications get you a step in the door. Again, HR managers are using these certifications as a criteria to say whether or not you can get an interview, more so even than college degrees. I have a really good friend that works at GE. Their HR department has actually removed college degree requirements from all job openings in the IT department, and they only list certifications. So the good part about this is certifications can be gotten much quicker than a 4-year degree. You can usually be done in 6 months, what might take somebody else 4 years. And like I said, I have taught many people that have a 4-year degree. They come out with a lot of knowledge but no certifications, and they still end up spending another 6 months getting their certs before they can actually hit the job market. So get certified. That's the third step in this career path. Here's some more statistics for you. 80% of certified individuals claim their certification helped them get a foot in the door. 90% of hiring managers say that IT certified workers are more likely to be promoted than those without certifications. And finally, more than 70% of IT professionals who have earned a certification have become recertified or have become recertified, reported increased work efficiency. So you get the job, you keep the job, you get promoted. That's what certifications can do for you. So that is our 3-step process to get a quick start in cybersecurity. So how does our program, and we do have one available for you, how does our Cybersecurity Bootcamp serve this purpose? Well, I have a quote here from our marketing material that we send out to potential students. So you will attend courses and do hands-on labs. Well, how does that fit into our 3-step process? Well, in attending the courses, you're going to get to watch videos. You're going to get to listen to expert instructors teach you the concepts and the vocabulary. You're going to have books to read, again, to reinforce that information that you're hearing. Once again, you're going to get hands-on labs, which is going to help you get those skills needed. and you'll be in a safe virtual environment. Virtual doesn't mean fake, by the way. It is real, but it is a virtual environment that if you break it, you just reboot it and start all over again. So you'll be in doing these hands-on labs, you'll be in a safe environment that you can repeat and repeat and repeat until you can get that muscle memory. Continuing on here, you'll get to apply your learning to successfully complete projects that address different cybersecurity topics. And throughout the program, you will interact with experts. Once again, that is going to give you that opportunity to talk to an expert, to listen to them talk the talk, learn the concepts, learn the vocabulary, and help them when you get to a brick wall. There's going to be times when you're going to hit that brick wall and you're not going to know what's the next step. Our experts are there anytime to help you get past that brick wall. Okay, they're going to guide you through our boot camp. They're going to answer questions for you. They're going to help you with labs and projects. The boot camp will end with a few capstone projects. So we're going to give you some major cybersecurity tasks to do so that you can see how you've applied all the stuff that you've learned, how you can apply it to the real world. You can actually put this type of stuff on your resume to say, I've actually breached XYZ network. I've done this type of security analysis. I've done this type of pen testing. And I've used these tools. I have familiarity with all of this, and you'll be getting that through our boot camp. So this is going to help you to apply this to real-life cybersecurity challenges. So let me tell you a little bit more about our 6-month Cybersecurity Bootcamp program. We actually have 2 tracks that we can look at. So notice at the top of this chart that I'm showing you here, one is called the Security Analyst Ethical Hacking. Security Analyst Ethical Hacking. This is more of the defense posture. So as it turns out, in cybersecurity, we have good guys and bad guys, just like the real world. So the good guys are the defense people. They're actually looking for attacks, and they're doing security analysis to find out where these attacks are coming from and how we can stop them. What defines this attack so that we can create a rule to now block this attack. On the other side of this, we have the ethical hacking and pen testing. This is the attacker side of it. Now, think about it. Why would we be teaching you to be an attacker? Well, we're not. Actually, I keep using that word. It's not on the slide, is it? I keep using the word attacker. It actually says ethical hacking. Turns out there's good hackers and bad hackers. Good hackers hack into systems so that we can learn what the vulnerabilities are. We can prove whether or not there's a risk, and then we can help corporations fix those vulnerabilities. That is ethical hacking. That is white hat hacking. Attackers use the exact same tools, the exact same methods, but their purposes are malicious. And so we're not going to be teaching you to be malicious attackers, but we are going to be looking at it from that side of it. Another name for this, instead of defense and attack, is blue team, red team. So the security analyst ethical hacking that you see there, that would be the blue team, the defense team, and then the ethical hacking pen testing would be the red team. So we can't, in this 6-month program, teach you how to be on both sides, so we do give you a choice. As we go through here, notice that we're going to have some courses that are common to both tracks. So hardware and operating system fundamentals, all the way down to Project B, both tracks will actually cover this material. Once we get to the security analyst side, that's just simply the security analyst. So there is a class that we'll teach specifically for that that's 3 weeks long. We get back together, both classes actually take, or both tracks actually take the ethical hacking. And then on the red side, you might call it, the ethical hacking pen testing, we have 3 weeks of a pen test class. And then notice that both of these classes are going to have projects to do. And then finally, there's a overall capstone project to bring it all together. So let me cover a little bit more about what's going on in these classes. In the hardware and operating system fundamentals class, we are going to go through the basics of taking the computer apart, finding out about motherboards, the different form factors, the different architectures, is it 32-bit or 64-bit? We're going to be looking at hard drives. Are they HDD SATA hard drives, or are they SSD, solid state hard drives? We're also going to be looking at RAM, all of the different things that go into a computer, your network adapters, your adapter slots, and you might say, why am I going back to the basics? Why are we doing like a home PC? Well, when we talk about the cloud, what is the cloud? Well, I don't want to get into that, but, some people, sorry about that. Some people consider the cloud somebody else's server. Okay, that's a very easy definition of it. So what's in that other server? Well, a motherboard, hard drive, RAM, networking. The same thing that would be in your home PC, it just looks slightly different, and there's a lot more of it. But computers are computers are computers. So that's why we start out with hardware and operating system fundamentals. And we're going to be looking at Windows and Linux and Apple operating systems. Then we get into network fundamentals. And that's really key, because what we learn in network fundamentals will follow us all the way through. Again, I do like using this term cybersecurity. What's cyber? It's another way of talking about networks. So when we talk about securing our information when it's at rest, when it's in motion, and when it's in use, we're going to have to talk about the network. So network fundamentals. I can't secure something unless I know what it is. So we'll talk about switches and routers, how they function, how they can be attacked, and how we can mitigate those attacks. And then we get into security fundamentals. And so a lot of vocabulary about different viruses and worms, intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems, all of that's covered in the security fundamentals class. And then you're going to get 2 weeks so that you can actually then go in and do a project and actually see if you've retained what you've learned in the previous classes. So you're going to get 2 weeks in a project. Then we're going to have some Python. Python is a scripting language. It's also a language that we can use to control computers. And so we're going to get an introduction into that. You're not going to become an expert in Python in 2 weeks, but you will be able to get an introduction in it. And again, that's one of those skills that we're going to be using later on in this program. Security Analyst, as I've mentioned already, the core part of that is analyzing what's going on a network, what's happening to my devices, and how can I mitigate any harmful events that are occurring. Your ethical hacking is now going to be looking at what are the rules involved in actually going in and doing pen testing in a company. So we're going to approach a company, we're going to tell them what our expertise is, and then we have to have a statement of work. We have to have an agreement with that company as to what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. There's something called white box testing, where the company tells us pretty much everything about their company. They tell us what networks they're using, what protocols, what applications they're using, and then we try to hack them using this knowledge. Of course, that's a little bit easier because they're giving us all of their insider information. There's also something called black box testing, where the company says, yes, we'd like you to test to see if there's any vulnerabilities, but we're not going to tell you anything, and you're not allowed to actually harm anything in our system. So that's the rules. So in black box testing, you have to then figure out, it's like you're in a black box, you can't see anything. You have to slowly start finding what the resources are. You have to slowly enumerate what your possible attack vectors are. Okay, why would we have a white box versus black box testing? It turns out sometimes we have malicious insiders. Sometimes we have employees in our own company that are doing things that are harmful to our organization. So for them, we can use white box testing to see what damage a malicious insider could do. And then, of course, the black box testing is what an outsider would have. An outsider that's trying to attack our network would basically simulate this black box testing. So that's the type of stuff you learn in the ethical hacking class. And then, of course, pen testing, we're actually then going to see if we can set up backdoors. We're going to see if we can copy files. We're going to see if we can erase our tracks so that people don't know that we were there. So all of these are very exciting topics. And by going through this entire process, the things that you learn here are going to make you job ready. So you can have a cybersecurity career. And you notice I keep saying the word career. I don't want you to just have a job. A job is something that you do 9 to 5. A career is who you are. So it doesn't matter what company you work for. It doesn't even matter where you live. A career is what you do, and it's what you're passionate about. And so I'm hoping that that some of my enthusiasm is rubbing off on you right now, so that you have the enthusiasm and the passion to go through this 6-month boot camp, get these skills, and then go out and make all of our information security networks much more secure. So who should attend our information security boot camps? It could be that you're happy in your current field, but you want to move to another company. Or you want to stay put, but shift from a non-technical role into a technical position. This would certainly be a good fit for you. Maybe you're looking to understand the implications of cyber and information security on the technology and overall business operations of your own company. Maybe you're looking for a career in information security or looking to change your career to information security. Finally, and this is not an all-inclusive list, but maybe you want to engage more deeply with your current job or boost your earnings. Remember, that certification said 90% that get certifications get a raise. So maybe you just want to boost your earnings in your current field. What are some of the real jobs that you could actually apply for after completing our information security boot camp? These are some job titles here. I'm not going to go through the entire list. You do have access to the PowerPoint. And we also have a recording of this webinar that you'll be able to access after the webinar. So you can actually go back and look at this. But certainly, you know, desktop network support specialist, cyber network defender, forensic computer analyst, all of these. Now, these are real jobs. Is it really for you? And I have been doing this. I tried to mention a little bit about my background when I first started. I have been doing boot camps like this for about the last 5 years. Again, I've been an instructor since 2005, but this type of work for the last 5 years. I have seen people that used to repair CB radios or deliver Jimmy John sandwiches work in cybersecurity. Okay, I have seen them go through these programs and get jobs. I have a friend that works at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas, and he says his company is dying for people that have the Security Plus certification. And they'll pretty much hire anybody that walks in the door that has a Security Plus certification. They'll hire them on a 6-month basis and give them training for 6 months in this field. And then if they work out, if they actually have the aptitude and the passion for this, they get hired on full time. So I see every day that not only are there real jobs, but people like you every day can get these jobs if you have the concepts, the vocabulary, the skills, and the certifications. So I do want to point out some of the certifications that you would be ready for after you went through our 6-month boot camp. A+ is the one about taking computers apart and putting them back together, installing operating systems, troubleshooting those, and laptops and printers. Network Plus is going to go into things like the OSI model, port numbers, firewalls, switches, routers. I could go on. I love subnetting, only I can't do subnetting in an hour. I'd have to have a 5-day webinar to do subnetting. Security Plus, we talk about business continuity, disaster recovery plans. We talk about CIA, AAA. So we talk about synchronous, asynchronous encryption. So very exciting class. And then we have the security analyst, which again is that blue team, that defender, where you're actually going to learn how to analyze attacks and defend against them. We have the ethical hacking class, where we're going to learn how we can do this in a manner that's not going to get us arrested. And then finally, pen testing. What can we actually get into, and what can we actually do on those systems?